Okay, continuing on with React today. Yesterday we were just playing around setting up our React application and pretty much just setting up static HTML to appear in our browser, which is nice, but that's not how we want our applications to work, right? In the end, we're going to want dynamic user interaction with our applications. And so today we're going to expand upon just creating a React app and beginning to work with components. And we're going to introduce something called state. And also on a side tangent, kind of related to state, but doesn't have to be. We'll also touch on conditional rendering for our components as well. So follow along with the README, but I may take a deviation from this to do better examples than what the README has. Fair warning. So I've got just a blank VS Code again with no React app going here. Does anybody remember how I set up a new React app? And if you don't remember, how can I find the command to set it up?
Isn't it the same as the not the CSS HTML command, like control something?
It is, I want to say it's sort of similar, but
Are you talking about the Vite or the React? Or is
yeah,
that all kind of the same thing?
it's all kind of the same thing. Like, how do I want to start a new React project, Vite, using Vite. What can I put in my terminal to get that rolling?
npm create Vite at latest.
All right, and for those who do not remember this, we have yesterday's README, which has it as one of the first things, one of the first code snippets in here. And you could also just Google React documentation, and there should be an installation portion and like quick start guide. Those will also have the commands for you to see as well. But we should have everything in the READMEs to help get you all started most of the time. So that's the easiest place to go to try to review how to get this going. Okay, so again, unlike anything else we've worked in so far, this actually has a little wizard that we have to go through all the prompts to set up our application. So this time we are going to call this, we'll call this a shopping list because I am going to make a shopping list application in my browser. And we are going to use React. That's what we're teaching here. And we're going to use it with JavaScript as the variant. You are more than welcome to look into the others. TypeScript is very popular too, but that you all do in your own time or in your personal projects. No, I don't want to use anything experimental. Install with npm and start now. So this is why this is a new prompt. This is what I wasn't used to in the old version. That prompt that says install and start now. So I bet if I picked no, it would run through installing it and then just kind of sit there. And then I'd have to do that npm run dev within the React application. But this is smart and easy and it has started it up. Again, we can click and follow the link and we see our little React app that it spits out with its boilerplate it has built in. As a refresher, these are all the files you should expect to see. You'll have your node modules, which is where all of our dependencies are getting installed. Public is kind of where we'll house like images and stuff. But source is the directory where the meat of what we'll be working in exists. The rest of these just kind of are part of the scaffolding to help our project run as expected. So what file is my working file in React? If I want to go and remove everything on this page, what file do I go to?
App.jsx.
Yes, correct. App.jsx. And if you didn't know, you can click around and look and then just kind of figure out which one has HTML and elements in there that kind of match what we're looking at here. So obviously everything we're seeing here kind of lines up with that. We have, let's see, we have click on the Vite and React logos to learn more, which is this right here. We have edit, and then the little source app. That's cool. They did it in the code property. That's a neat tag. I haven't seen that. So yes, obviously we could tell that this is the page that appears in our browser and where we would do most of our work in. So it's pretty busy, has a lot of things here. I'm going to go ahead and just remove everything to start from scratch. But I will leave the little fragments up because we learned that if we start stacking HTML elements and we have multiple lines of them, React doesn't like that in the return. It wants just one element surrounding everything. So let's take this out up here too, but we will come back to that shortly. Okay, so now I have my app .jsx file completely cleared out, ready for me to just start throwing things in to appear here on the screen. I'm going to leave the CSS on today. We'll see how it looks as we're creating our application. So I said I wanted to create a shopping list application. So should I start just writing my HTML in here? Or is there maybe a better way to go about this? The big hint is no, I don't really want to write too much in here itself. Otherwise, this is going to get very busy. This is like my entry point into the whole project. So I don't want to just throw all of my HTML in this return render here. I'm going to make a component so that I can have just, I'm envisioning just like a little shopping list header and then an input location and then maybe a button to add that item into my page. So I'm going to create a new component, which we will put under a folder, not outside. We need to put it in source, a new folder. Everything goes under source called components. So this is where we're going to have a component. In y'all's own words, what do you understand a component to be?
Like a mini module?
Yeah, that's a good one, a mini module. Something, it's like a reusable building block is what the README says, and I like that. Reusable is a very key word. You try to make components that are small enough in scope that you can reuse it in multiple places in your application without writing the code over and over and over again, right? We want to keep it dry.
Would you
Yes.
say it's kind of like Legos?
Yeah, sure. Could be like Legos. So the components can each be like one little Lego piece that you can put and build together on the page in a Lego design if you want. That's a good way to think about it too. But they are just small little pieces that you'll be able to throw together anywhere you like within your application. So we put these all under the components directory and we name them similar to how you see app.jsx named. You're gonna use an uppercase letter with it and have the file extension .jsx. So I'm gonna create a shopping list component here for my home page. You can consider this like a home page for now until we get into pages. But we'll treat this like our home page that we're building out right here. Again, I'm not good at remembering the syntax structure, even though it is just a function that returns, but it's so much easier to just copy and paste. So I'm going to do that here, but make sure to update my component name to be what my component is called. So I'm naming this shopping list. And what is a component, essentially? Or what is it actually?
Reusable code?
Reusable code, yes, but what is the structure of a component?
Oh, it's HTML, right?
It is a function. It is a JavaScript function, but it returns HTML for sure. So all these are just going to be functions that will return HTML that we can also inject JavaScript features into in our return statement. So pretty cool thing there. So let's get my shopping list up. I'm gonna keep these fragments. I said I wanted some headers. We'll just do like shopping list. Let's see, I'm gonna get this like half and half so we can watch it. Oh, but why is it not appearing in my home screen? What do I need to do with this component that I'm making? I've got an HTML tag here. I should see it here because it's complete. There's no errors, but why am I not seeing it? I see it says import. Yes, because I'm in my shopping list component, right? But this page that we see right here is coming from app.jsx, and this is empty. So we need to import in, let's see if it'll be smart, from shopping list. It is, it's being smart. Okay, so I start typing in the component, and if I tab over, it will add the import for me up top. Perfect. And it's like an HTML tag here where we have the opening, the name of the component, and then a closing portion to this tag. Cool. So now I can see it is grabbing what I'm writing here or returning here as HTML in this component just by having the name of this component, which is a function call right here within our app.jsx. Okay, so I got my shopping list. Now I'm going to have an input placeholder name in there that will say enter item, just so they know what they're doing. Close that. Okay, so now I have an input section as well. And I imagine I'm also going to have a button underneath where when I click it, it will add whatever I put in here onto a list somewhere on the screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that too. A button. Okay, so this should be kind of where we ended yesterday with our knowledge. We learned about how to make a component, import it, and just call our component within different sections of our application. I have my shopping list feature, I have an input, and I can add item. However, there is no, like this appears on the screen, but nothing is going to happen when I enter an item, right? Let's say stick add, right? Because what am I missing?
Somewhere for that to go.
Somewhere for that to go. Yep. And usually with our buttons, we have like something like an on click or whatever, some sort of event handler, right? So we need to make this page dynamic so that it can have event handler on our button, and it can take this input that we're sticking in here and place it somewhere on our screen. So how would we usually do that in HTML? If we were trying to, like, let's just start with trying to save this input. How would we typically, if you all can remember back then, and you don't have to remember the exact syntax, but what did we usually do when we were trying to grab an input value?
We saved it into a div list with the parent child.
Okay, yep, we were able to like grab this somehow, right, with something in the tag, in this input tag, we were able to add something that allowed us to like point to this value, right, and then append it into the rest of the page. Yeah.
The ID.
Yeah, like ID and stuff for sure. It's actually the value that we're going to try to grab. And we would typically save that in a variable, right? We wouldn't, I mean, we could just string it all together. But we would typically say like, item to add or what is like let item to add or const item, whatever we want, equals this input like dot value or whatever. We would try to save it into a variable, right? And then we would append that into, we do like a query selector, or not query selector, what is it? Get by ID, some sort of div, and slap it in there. But the part I want to stop at first before we get into all that is just the fact that we usually grab this input and we have to like save the value to a variable, right? We can't just take it and work with it elsewhere without saving it somehow to a variable. In React, anytime you want to save something to a variable to cause changes in your browser or on the screen, you're going to use something called state. You're not just going to say, let item to input equal whatever, however we're grabbing this. Do not do this because we can do that. However, React, the like cool thing about React is it automatically re-renders your browser or your page here based on different things happening using like different React hooks, and then different, like, I guess you could consider them event listeners that are built into React. So React doesn't respect just a plain variable as something that triggers a re-render of your page. So I could grab this value and save it to a variable, but the page would not re-render. It would not do anything and change anything else on my page. We want this page to take those inputs and dynamically update as we are working in it, if that makes sense. So state is one of those ways that when state is updated, your page will automatically re-render and do different things. So in your README, says here that, let's see, here's how we're going to import it and use it, but here we can see it allows us to manage and update state within a component. It's a convenient way to declare and update variables within these components. But more than that, it's a way to like update and declare variables that we are expecting to change our website in some way. So we're going to import state, and then we're going to set our syntax to hold the value of this input for us. So how the README says we import state is from React or import. Import. I don't know if we have to import React anymore. We'll do it still. And then we're going to use state. From, oh my gosh, if my fingers can stay on the right, from React. Okay, I guess you could put the, I mean, we're technically doing JavaScript-ish, so semicolon, sure. Okay, why doesn't it like that? Unexpected token. Because I didn't follow our README there. I gotta get used to React. In Django, we don't put anything in these parentheses, do we? I don't think we do. But in React, any module you're importing something from, you will use these. Oh my gosh, not parentheses. Quotation marks. Ticks? Backtick? It's not backticks. What is the other? What am I trying to think of?
Single quotes.
Single quotes, sure. Yeah. Single quotes. So try to remember that better than I do. But it will tell you. Obviously, you saw over here was having trouble rendering the page because it could not find that module. So it will tell you when it has issues. Okay, so Now we're going to set up our state, which we can essentially think of state as a variable that we will be using and updating. So the variable here that I am planning to use and update is going to be the input value. I want to save that and use it and update it based on whatever is going on over here. So how we set up our state is we're going to do const, which is our JavaScript defining variables thing. You'll do brackets, square brackets, and then you'll put the name of the variable or state that you want to define. So I'm going to call this one input value. And then the next thing is the function name that will update your state. So typically, standard practice is to call this function set input value. Okay, so this is the name of the variable you'll be interacting with and updating. And then this is the function name that will be doing the updating of this variable. Okay. And we are going to set that equal to our use state function that takes in an initial value for this state. So you can leave it blank and it will be like null. I think it's null. I'd have to print and see. But you can also pass in like an actual value for that. So we can set a default value right off the bat. I don't want to because that doesn't make sense for an input value. I don't want there to be a default value in there. I want whatever the user's passing in. So I'm just going to set it to an empty string for now. So initially this variable, this input value variable, which we will now forward call state, is going to be set to just an empty string. Okay, so now I need a way to grab this input and inputs always are difficult for me. I have to look back at syntax a lot. The value is always, let's see, so we have that, and then we have, we're going to enter these down so we can see them better. So then I think the next one is value. And value is, it doesn't tell me when I hover over it, but this is usually like what this value of the cell is, I feel. I'd have to look it up again. I can't quite remember, but just based on other examples and code snippets I've seen, you usually just set it to the value of whatever variable is being saved with the input. It's just purely based on other code snippets I've seen. If somebody else actually understands that and gets that and wants to tell us about that later, feel free. Otherwise, I'm just going off of what I've seen and I follow suit and patterns. So now we need to handle on change, right? That's the other thing we usually see in an input. On change of this input, we want to update this input value to reflect whatever is in this input, right? So we're going to have an on change function in here. And if you notice, while I'm working in this return, we're getting like, it looks a little different than your typical HTML tags and attributes you have with the HTML tags. Yeah, I think it looks just a little different. Maybe I'd have to look back again. It's been a minute since we've been in HTML, but I feel like this looks different with the curly brackets. So for our on change feature here, we are actually going to use a JavaScript function. Okay, we're going to take an event and we're doing our fat arrow. We're going to have that event, which is somebody typing in the input, right? And we're going to take the event's value, like the typing in this input, we're going to take that value and save it to this state. So do that. You never set the state directly. I do not say input value equals the E target value. You do not do that. Anytime you want to set a state, you use the function that you defined here, or named the function that you named here, to set this state. And that's why we call it set input value. So I'm going to take that event of typing happening in this input, and I'm going to set the input value with the event target value, which is basically the text appearing in here. Let me get up our console here. Ugh, so many hang. There we go. Uncaught reference stake is not defined. JavaScript 20. Oh, jeez. Because I had steak in the
What are you
file.
having for dinner?
Not steak, I can tell you that, man, but I'm definitely craving it. Okay, and then let's do a up here, not in the return, but up above, where this is where you're going to do a lot of your JavaScript. All of your working with state and console logging and doing fetch from the API. This section up here, before your return, just like any other JavaScript function, is where you're going to write the majority of your JavaScript. Okay, so I can in here write a console log, and I want to watch this input value, this state. So right now, our state is set to empty. It's nothing. But as we type in this list, we should be able to see the state capture. See, now it re-rendered our screen because the state changed. This on change in this input is setting the state to this new value that is in the input. And every time a state changes, the whole browser will re-render and capture that information as we're doing that. That is a weird, but we can see how that is capturing the input. I think it probably does that in regular JavaScript too, maybe, but we can watch the state get updated and change in real time with that console log. So this is very handy when you're working with states, is seeing it based on, let's see. So we're working with that down here. We're just console logging up here in the within the function itself. Okay, so we saw then that the onChange is updating as the user types, which is me, and then it is saving into our state. And once the state changes, React will re-render the page. So now we need to do a few more things, right? So we can type something in here, which, let's see, we'll go back to steak, which we're not having for dinner, unfortunately. We can see that steak is now the value of this input value. So now all I need to do is add some sort of like on-click handler that will take this value and put it in a list down here. The cool thing is with React, we don't have to do like a get by ID or document selector, whatever all that stuff is. You don't have to do that. We are going to make another state to hold this list that I'm making, this shopping list. And then we will spit it out on the screen, but using the variable, the state name that we're saving it into. Okay, so next, we'll leave that console log up. I'm going to make a new state. And this is going to be called items, just for my shopping items. So that's the name of the variable we're saving everything into, the name of the state. And now the second portion is the name of the function that will update the state. So typically we just set items. Okay, so we have the state and then the function defined, and we need to set it to an initial value. Once again, I could put something in here. And set it, I could absolutely put steak in my list, but then every time this renders, when I handle printing this on the screen here, steak will always appear on the screen. So it doesn't make sense to start with any value in this list of items because I want an empty shopping list when I visit this application. So let's just start empty. Although, if I do this, what is it actually identifying this variable as? This state as?
A string rather than a list.
Yep, correct. So that's not gonna work for us. Let's actually have an empty list instead. Or since we're in JavaScript, array. So you can have different data types just as you do with any other variable that you're using. So your state can be different data types. It could be a string, it could be an integer, it could be a list or an array. It could be a dictionary. It could be whatever you want. You use this initial use state to define how that looks. You can also use the set function to change how that looks later on as well. But standard practice is definitely initialize it as what it's going to be. Okay, so now we have our items list. What do I do now? Now I want to, okay, I have an items list. Do we want to add items to it first, or do we want to put it on the screen? What do you guys want to do?
Before we get too far into that, Tiffany, maybe I missed it. Why couldn't the constant for items be a string? Like, why'd you make it an array?
Because I'm going to be adding multiple items. Like, my idea is I'm going to enter an item here, click add, and it's basically going to append everything to this list.
Got it. Okay, so it's not some type of conflict between having the both of those being a string.
But oh yeah, no, like it's going to be a list. It's going to be a list of strings.
Got it.
So, yeah. And you can have as many states as you want to. None of these states will interfere with each other. It's just a different way to do your variables and updating your variables. So I think the next thing we should do is add items to this list that we've identified, because if I start putting this on the screen right now, it's not going to do anything because there's nothing in there. So let's make this button add our item to our list here. So this button, instead of just having just button, we're now going to do an on click. Right, that's what we're used to. This on click, we're going to define a function that will be called handle add item. I haven't defined it yet, but we'll do that in a second here. So let's go up here in our function and now make our handle add item function. Okay. Let's see, I'm gonna do a fat arrow function. Okay, so add item isn't necessarily going to take in a parameter because it's when I click this button, I'm going to just target this input value state to add whatever's held in that state into my list. So I don't need to pass in any parameters here because state is available all the time, anywhere, everywhere. So I don't need to pass it in. It can see it. So normally we would just do like items. What is JavaScript? Does JavaScript append? Or I forget what JavaScript does now. It's been a minute. But we basically append or add that item into the list, right? That's what we would typically do. But we can't do that. We can't just take items and append things into it. We have to use set items to do that. And when we do set items, it's going to overwrite everything in this list with the new value. So with our shopping list, we don't want every new additional item to like just start from scratch, right? We don't want to click and then just, we don't want to do set items with the input value. Because then here, we'll watch it. Let's see, let's console log items. Okay, and let's refresh this so it's clear. Okay, so we can see our items is initialized empty array here. And then this one here is probably our input value. So let's do our stake. Okay, stake is now the value of input value. Our items list is still empty because I haven't clicked the button to add it. When I add it, now we can see, okay, it does add stake to the items and our input value is still stake. Cool. Now let's add eggs. So now we can see our stake is still in our items list and eggs is now the new input value. When we go to add this, it overwrote the list. So it doesn't just add it on, it will overwrite it. But how we handle that is we use the spread operator. Does anybody know the spread operator?
Like when you have a list that you don't know how long it's going to be, right?
Sort of. So do you remember like the syntax for that? Like what typically we see with that?
3 dots.
Yes. Exactly. So it's going to be the 3 dots. So instead of setting items with the input value directly, we're actually going to take the items that may already be in there, as well as the input value item, and just add this list, if that makes sense. So this will take everything that's currently in the items list and include the new input value with that as well. So I like where we're at now, I think. Let's take a look. So we have stake, we add item. Ooh, what the heck? Hang on. Where was it getting eggs from? Okay, we're good. That was weird. I guess eggs were already in there, but it did something weird to it. That was weird. Let's see. So now we got steak. Now let's add eggs to it. Okay, now we can see it's working fine. Steak and eggs are now adding in the list together. However, this is annoying, right? We don't want to keep backspacing after we add an item. So in this on-click function that we've established here, let's go ahead and set the input value back to empty. We don't need that. Why? Why are you mad? It shouldn't be mad. Okay, we'll take a look and see. So now when I click this button, it resets it back to empty because we've set the value to be that input value state. And we can see input value was reset back to empty, and then the item was added to our list. Okay, any questions so far on how we've got this on-click handler, how we've used our set items with our spread, and then how we've set the input value back to empty so it clears out our input. Okay, so now we are going to take and throw this list that we're saving, this items list that we're saving items into. Let's add a few more. Eggs, milk. Okay, so now we've got, this is my list. This is the items list, that state. Now I want to take and throw these on the screen down here. So this is a really cool tool that this was your stretch goal for yesterday, to use like a higher order function to take like an array input and go ahead and list them out in a list on the screen. So we are going to use map. It is like my favorite feature to use. And I'm going to put it below this button here. So again, we can use JavaScript. That's being weird. Why is the spacing weird? Okay. So we can use JavaScript within this return. We just have to handle it a little differently. We have to wrap it in curly brackets. But before I do that, I'm going to identify what I'm about to do as an unordered list. Okay, I'm going to make an unordered list right here below the shopping list enter area that will display every item I add into this list. And I'm going to do that by doing a higher order function. I'm going to take this, this array, this items array, and I'm going to map it out. And with map, we take, let's see, the value, it accepts up to 3 arguments. So you take the value, the index, and the array you're passing in, or no, what? No, it doesn't take the array like that. I don't know what that list thing is. I have to, the array, never. I'll have to see what that argument is. I don't really use it though. I'm going to take, so for the value, I want the items, or item. Sorry. It's going to be each item in my items list. Okay. So I'm going to take, just item and the index, which is the index in the array. And we're going to fat arrow function over. And we're going to take each of these items in this array, and we are going to make them each a list item. So this is really cool. And it's going to complain in here. You'll see something, usually it's a yellow thing. It's not happening now because I haven't, let's fix it. Let's do this first. So it's going to be that item variable there. Oh my gosh. And then what else am I missing here? Another parenthesis, I think. No. Why am I? Oh.
I don't think your last curly brace has a opening.
There we go. Okay, yeah, I got the last curly brace is for this one. So curly braces wrap JavaScript features or functions or variables. So I'm wrapping this whole thing, this whole JavaScript thing in a curly bracket. And then I'm wrapping this variable name in a curly bracket as well. Because this is a JavaScript thing. If I didn't wrap it in a curly bracket, it would see it as just item in HTML tags. So it just literally say item, 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 item. But we want to grab the value of this here. Okay. Oh, it doesn't have a problem with it. Usually it yells at you that every list item needs a key. Maybe when I add some. Yes, okay, yep. Each child in a list should have a unique key property. So we can see though, when I added the item, which put it in my items list, this map feature is automatically taking that list and taking each item in the items array and throwing it in a list item. So this is helpful, like anytime you want to display something in a similar fashion down the screen, you can map out the contents of that array and structure it however you want in whatever HTML you want. To solve the key thing, we just throw key equals that index. Easy. Now we won't get that issue anymore. So we can add steak and eggs. I think I saw something about Waffle House. Are we all feeling the breakfast vibes here? I just realized I am doing pretty breakfast items. But we can see that that map work out and throw it on the screen. And we can see our state is still holding, our item state is still holding all of the items we are adding to it. And then that input value state is resetting after I submit, but it accepts whatever I type in there and updates it. So any questions so far on what we have at the moment with our map?
I had a question about something you did earlier, but I wasn't sure why. I think it was, now we've kind of expanded upon it. On the input tag on line 17,
Mhm.
you see how it differs from, like, let's say line 22 where you use the button and then you close to the with the button tag?
Yeah,
S- Is that, is there a reason? Like,
uh,
instead of having an opening and closing tag for input,
I mean, we could, uh,
is it just like shorthand?
yeah, and I
Okay.
mean, it's just kind of, you can't put anything between the tags anyways, so, um, yeah, it's closing it out without having to make a separate tag. Kind of like
Hmm.
image source or whatever. Is that the
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing there. But good question. So anything you don't stick something between, you can likely just close it out shorthand. I can't remember all the ones you can and can't do that with, but input is definitely one, obviously. Any other questions on what we've got so far? Okay, so now we're going to go into conditional rendering. I'm going to teach one type of conditional rendering, which you will use more often than the others. But you definitely refer to the README today to see several different ways to conditionally render something. So what I mean by conditionally render is we can use like if else statements to show a component or not on the screen. So like these options have if there's a certain condition met, then return the HTML under this component. Otherwise, a next condition do that. We can use ternary operators, which it's like our JavaScript ternary, right? It will check if this condition is met first, and then if it is, it will do this first thing, which is render this component. Otherwise, it will render the other component instead. And then, oh, thanks for posting the self-closing tags. That's a good one. I didn't know if React had some special self-closing tags because React can sometimes have some special things you can do in it. Um, but okay, side tangent, sorry. The last conditional operator you'll see here is and. So this is kind of similar to the ternary, but it's going to check a condition. And if that's true, it will render the component that you have identified. So we'll look at this in practice. It's really cool. Like we could see this one is definitely for like a sign-in page, right? So it's checking if this and this should not be like this. This should be in a state. We would never just have this in our file. We would use a state, but if an is signed in state is true, then that means the user's signed in, then it would show them the welcome banner. But if they aren't signed in, it's going to show them a sign-in prompt instead. So you can use ternary to kind of show what you want and how the user interacts with your application. Oh gosh, that took everything over to the other side. Sometimes I hate these like automatic window things. Okay, there's my shopping list. Perfect. Okay, so now I want to, let's see, what did I want to do? I was looking at my notes here. Uh, let's make, I don't like my notes. I am going to, how can I do this without introducing props? Um, So right now we're working all in one component, but eventually we'll be teaching you how to pass parameters basically to different components to use within them. But that's not today. Today is just state. I think Thursday is props, possibly. Okay, so let's just do it here. We're gonna just say items. I think that's how I can do it. Let me look at my syntax here. I think I might have to do it in 2 curly brackets though. We will see. Maybe not. Okay. Well, that doesn't make sense. Well, because we're not gonna see anything if there's nothing in there. I'm trying to think of a good rendering thing for this. What else can I do? What else can I do? Ooh. Okay, maybe this is why my example is kind of weird. Ooh, okay. No, it wasn't weird. So I was going along this route. Like I was checking if the items had things in it. So we're gonna do a ternary instead of just that was the and pretty much. I should have done and, not the question marks. But the ternary is going to check a condition and do one thing or the other, right? So I want to make sure there's items in this list, and if there isn't, then we'll put on something on the screen that says no items yet. Okay, so right now it's just empty, but I'd like to show something kind of indicating where these items are going. So first things first, I'm going to check that the item's length is, like, I'm checking if this item's length is equal to 0. So that's going to be an empty list, right? If it is equal to 0, I don't need that right there. Then we are going to do something first. Okay, so this is going to be the first thing we do. And then if it's not 0, which is going to be this second thing we do. I put it around that. Yes. No. Yes. Do that. Where's my other? I think I put it in here. We're gonna have to, hang on. Not pass. Let's fill this out though. So we're just gonna throw no items yet in here. The syntax is weird with these curly brackets. Hey, let me start over here. So this whole thing is wrapped, and then this is going to need curly bracket. Doesn't like the map though. We'll get to that. Oh, because of the. No, that was where I needed a curly probably. Yes. Okay. Fixed it. So we have the curly brackets and wrapping the whole thing. And then our ternary is going to do this condition check first. And if this is the case, it's going to do this within parentheses, which we've just said, throw this paragraph tag up there with no items yet in our shopping list. Once we start adding items and this is not true anymore, then it's going to evaluate to the next parentheses, which is going to be this items list, which we have to wrap in curly brackets because it's a variable with a value, or state rather, with a value. So we cannot just reference it directly. We have to wrap it in curly brackets. And then we do our fat arrow function here. Hopefully we followed along with that. But let's see it in action as conditional rendering. So this is conditional rendering. Right now, this list is empty, so it meets this first criteria where we have no items yet. But as soon as we add stake in here, map is not a function. I'd mess this up. It's not items dot map. It's items map. Where is the other curly bracket going? Next item. Here. Oh my gosh. This is why. I need to make the unordered list underneath here. And we're going to have to enter that in. So unordered list. And we're gonna do that. I don't, we gotta close out under, okay, so this whole thing needs to be wrapped. And then I gotta deal with these parentheses around it. It would have been easier had I just started this from scratch instead of trying to work through here. Okay, so this is going to be, yeah, 1, 2, 3. It's the 1, 2, 3. Oh, but we need one of them outside of the unordered list because it's this one, closing that. Okay, I think this is good. Can I format? Okay. So now we can see it better. I had my parenthesis. I wasn't doing the unordered list on the other side of this ternary condition, and that was wrong. Yeah, so, and there's our total JavaScript here, the whole thing, and then the two conditions or the two renderings based on the condition. Okay. Are we good there? Do we need me to explain it anymore, or can we see how I found my way to where my stuff was missing? I will definitely share this code though, for y'all to follow along later. So let's do this again. We've met this first criteria, but now that we're going to add this item, now we could see stake is within this list. So this is going to evaluate to false, which means this second condition will occur, which will make that list item there. Okay, so that is conditional rendering. It's much easier when you have it with components. So you can have like a state. Again, I'm gonna do something bad here. You will never do this, but so we can do C shopping list and I think I have to put this in curly brackets though. This JavaScript, maybe not. Where is my README? Why is this not working? Oh, because I did it in the wrong spot. We do it outside the component. I am sorry. Per the README, we do this outside the components. We're going to take that C shopping list and evaluate that. And then close it. Okay. So now let's say this was a state for some reason that's being updated with true or false if I've set it to false. So we can see that it will not show this component because this value is false because of this conditional rendering. But once I turn that to true, it will show this component because this is evaluating to true. And that was this right here, this example. Condition and content. So condition and the component we are sharing. Okay, any questions before we talk about challenge for the day? We feel good about state. State is the important hot item today. So understanding state, how to set it up, when to use it. If I see anybody doing this, I am going to yell at you to review state. Because very rarely will you have a variable that's being utilized that should not re-render your React app for some reason. Okay, then I will stop recording and we can go over today's challenge.